Hey everyone, and welcome back to something new. Much is afoot with Take-Two Interactive, so much so that a State of Take-Two video actually makes a hell of a lot of sense for us to do, and I think you're going to learn a lot in this video. That of course had me thinking, we should do these publisher status reports more often, so this is the start of what I hope can be a series that will truly add more value for you, give you more insight, and just, elevate it above just the day-to-day reporting, so you get a bigger picture view of where the industry is going. And when I think about how I'm investing, resources in this channel, it's things like this that I really want to grow it into. So if you're down for more of that, please consider smashing that like button. Seriously, I'd appreciate it a lot. And with that, let's just get going. Okay, so change could be afoot at Take-Two. Rumor has it that the company is moving away from how it previously handled its big releases and would now rather make smaller games that come out more frequently. This would be, of course, a drastic departure from how Take-Two have traditionally behaved with their studios, and indeed how many of those studios have actually traditionally operated with how they actually make their games. But the question here is, would this be a change for the better? And if so, who would it be better for? Us or, their bottom line? Take-Two has long operated under the belief that a game should only release when it is ready. CEO Strauss Zelnick once called that the apex of effort and perfection. And I mean, hey, just look at Strauss. I think that might just be the apex of effort and perfection at age 62. But jokes aside, yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2, that was delayed twice. That would have cost them a lot of money before it went on to become the highest selling game of 2018. So that obviously worked. This strategy, while perhaps not the most consistent in the world, has been working perfectly well for Take-Two up until now, it would seem, with this directional change they want to make. So back in January, a story emerged that Take-Two are pressuring Rockstar to release shorter games more frequently. Zelnick actually admitted last year that he thinks the 8-year gap between Red Dead Redemption and its sequel was probably too long, and that Take-Two as a company will be working towards reducing the wait between their releases. Zelnick also recently reiterated that he wants Take-Two to increase and diversify its output and to add new frontline releases each year. Hopefully, though, that does not mean that Strauss is going to be going all Bobby on us and, pushing those annualized yearly franchises. Indeed, Rockstar's release history, it has changed a lot over the years. The studio actually released at least one title or expansion every year from 1998 through 2013. GTA 5 launched in 2013, and that was Rockstar's last title until Red Dead Redemption 2. Their games are good, and they make a lot of money for Take-Two, but seemingly there are not enough of them, given how much money they can potentially make. Rockstar's development methods, though, may not exactly lend themselves to making these smaller, snappier games, at least right now. A lot has been said about crunch at the studio, you will have heard that in this channel, though it, of course, as we recently reported, is said to actually be improving. Crunch, though, drove a lot of the way development was done, especially with, say, Red Dead Redemption 2 and past games, and whatever that burden was placed, whatever the burden was on staff to make that happen, it obviously did end up resulting in a massive game that players loved and really did buy a lot of. So then I think the question is, if they pull back all that crunch, change how they make games, and then make those smaller ones, would Rockstar's core audience actually accept an 8-hour story campaign after the expectations set by, say, Red Dead Redemption 2? Now, on that topic, word has it the GTA 6 will be moderately sized at launch and will be regularly expanded upon, which, that is one way to alter a front-loaded development cycle for sure. The approach could free up development resources in the short term, yes, and, sort of shift content focus to be a bit more of a live service-like update schedule, which may not go down well with players. There are indeed rumors that GTA 6 will be more of a live service-y title, which could play into Take-Two's affinity for ongoing engagement with its player base and would line up with this, smaller releases, but more of them. Now, this would overhaul how Rockstar have always operated, and that would be major. Take-Two's release philosophy has long been that rushing projects hurts them in the long run, at least with Rockstar. And Rockstar have been given the freedom and the flexibility to pretty much just take as long as they want to ensure that their games have been ready for release. Just looking at GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2's performance, this approach has obviously been working, so why would Take-Two want to change it? Would it work? Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't. Perhaps it is actually the case that the strength of those brands is such that just any GTA, any Red Dead content is something people would gobble up en masse, so it might work. at least in the short term. But the bottom line is this: Take-Two wants shorter gaps between their big game releases. And you know what? They're kind of doing it already. Red Dead Redemption 2 handled 2018's financials, while Borderlands 3 covered 2019. So far this year, though, we've had XCOM Chimera Squad. You may not have even heard of the damn thing, but yeah, it's a surprise standalone expansion to XCOM 2 that actually changes up a lot, and it looks precisely like the kind of accessible title that Take-Two are shooting for, and it's even 50% off on Steam during its launch week. Then 2020's other releases are being helmed by Private Division, which is one of Take-Two's publishing wings. So with those, there's Disintegration, that should be on track to release this year following the completion of its beta. Now that's a weird game. You know, I watched Jack Frags' early video on it. It seems perfectly fine, but just not stellar. But there is the fact that it's being led by one of Halo's co-creators. That is a major thing for a lot of people, and it is Take-Two's primary marketing angle, it seems. Then, of course, there's Kerbal Space Program 2, which, though delayed, is expected to release this year, with the devs promising to make the best possible sequel. So at least in the PC market, that could do extremely well. However, Zelnick, he did recently reiterate that Take-Two are making their most significant investment ever in their development pipeline, and that we're going to see that over the next 5 years. Something we're not going to see over the next year, though, is the next WWE 2K game. And this may be where Take-Two's new strategy has shown some cracks. After the absolute unmitigated disaster that was WWE 2K20, this year's installment is actually cancelled so that the devs, Visual Concepts, can get to grips with the franchise. Now, rumor also has it that any WWE 2K22 game will actually skip the next-gen consoles, really trying to give the devs as much possible time to just bounce back, make a good game on familiar hardware with as little stress as is possible. So, could this be Take-Two's emphasis on speed actually initially coming back to bite them? It actually could be. One of the most significant pieces of news, though, around that WWE 2K20 game was Yuki's high development falling out with 2K. Now, while the details in that story are a bit sketchy, word has it right that, is it Yuki, whatever they're called, that their chief complaints were around time and budget constraints. Now, their departure suddenly put Visual Concepts in full control of that game. And the thing is, they had only ever had a supporting role in the franchise's development since 2014. So, yeah, we should perhaps be amazed that Visual Concepts were even able to get a game out at all, given all that context. I mean, after all, Yuki, or whatever they're called, they had 20 years of experience developing wrestling games, right? And they still said that the time was too tight. So, in a way, what hope could Visual Concepts, who had just been a support studio for that title, what hope could they have had? Take-Two, though, thankfully, have appeared to have learned from that WWE debacle. The decision to just snooze the franchise for a year, it's going to cost them money, but it is a smart move, and it does show some... I mean, it shouldn't be impressive, big picture thinking, but for the game industry, yeah, maybe it is impressive. And then they do have, though, a sort of palate cleanser WWE title, sort of to tide people over until the next proper mainline entry that hopefully for them will reinvigorate the franchise. Now, there's still no word on what that palate cleanser title is, though some sources claim that the Japanese studio Yuki are involved, but who knows, maybe too many bridges have been burnt for those rumors to actually be true. Something, though, that Take-Two have mentioned numerous times over the past year has been their development pipeline and their investment in it. Last year's earnings call highlighted that R&D spending was actually the highest it had been in 5 years for them, and Zelnick emphasized that they weren't just investing for the sake of it, right? That they really were putting this where it would count. As it stands, though, that's obviously all just talk. We've not seen any of this actually come out. Having a vast development pipeline, that doesn't mean much if the developers themselves can't actually handle it, right? And, the same goes for Take-Two's more frequent release ambitions. We've heard about their investments on so many occasions, too, but, what exactly are they investing in, right? We don't really know. Is it planning for next-gen and core technologies, engineering? Are they expanding their core content creation staff? Are they doing that stuff sensibly? Are they just throwing money at legions of new hires in the belief that, more people equals more games? And everybody pretty much knows that, productivity does not linearly scale with staff count, to be sure. So there's all that going on, right? All this investment. It's got to be building up to something, but we just do not know what that is or when we will see it. We now do know, though, that one of the sequels that Take-Two mentioned last year is a new BioShock game, but that's going to be in development for, quote, the next several years. So that does seem to be a major investment, right? So who knows when we'll see that? When we'll see GTA 6 and what form it will actually take in the wake of Rockstar's change-ups and whatever pressures Take-Two are exerting upon their studios. There are shreds of this decent new direction, though, at Take-Two, like with the XCOM game, but they will need to be careful, right? They may need to accept that their strategy simply cannot work for all their studios, that it may take some time. While it may work for something like the XCOM team, maybe for Rockstar, that's going to be a big change, right? Moving to several games a year, or, even just a yearly game sort of release, and actually maintaining that level of quality they're known for. Now, the decisive action taken with WWE 2K does suggest from them a willingness to acknowledge when something is not working, and to actually take steps to rectify it, rather than to just try to push through, which I suppose is good. In the end, though, their main goal, of course aside from profits, is to get more content to the players. And that could be a good thing, provided they look after their developers in the process and the quality is actually there. So yes, Take-Two's strategy could actually work. Now there's one final thing I want to mention here, and it's really for the Rockstar angle, okay? So, let's say you're making Red Dead, right? You're making this humongous world, and if you actually dive into that, what is it actually? Well, number one, you've got your engineering, okay? So you've got to make all of the new graphical effects that you're going to be using. You've got to get that all together, get it working in engine. That is a massive, massive cost. And then you're optimizing and doing all of those things, okay? Then you've got a legion of staff in-house and probably outsource, studios for asset creation, right? For that game. The same goes for GTA. So basically, when you're making a game, you're incurring this humongous cost just to get the stuff that you need to make the content into existence, right? Because you need to make all those characters and all those rigs, which means you need to make your rigging process, your animation pipeline, all of that stuff. You've got to put so much upfront work into making that happen before you can even really, actually make the game, make the missions, make the content that us players actually play. So you could see from Take-Two's thought, right, from their perspective, that, we've just made this Red Dead Redemption game, okay? We've got all of these assets, we've done all of this engineering, and that's it? We're just going to leave it there? Take-Two would probably be thinking, well, would our players not like it if we made a few new characters, made a new storyline, and had that storyline, of course, use a bunch of the assets we've already made? And you might think, oh, that's really scummy, but in another way, it kind of is just a traditional expansion pack, right? Like, yes, Warcraft 3, the Frozen Throne, did give us a bunch of new art assets and stuff, but that was very much just, hey, did you like Warcraft 3? Sweet, guess what? We've got more Warcraft 3 for you. And I think for a lot of people who like the Grand Theft Auto games, who like Red Dead, I think they'd be pretty happy with a yearly narrative expansion. I think they would lap that up, and it would make a lot of money. So if that is what we could come to expect, then I actually think that could be good. Right? They've made all these incredible assets. They've put all of that work into making those horse gonads shrink in the cold. So why not put that horse into a new expansion? Leverage the fact that you did all of that incredible ball work. You get my point though, right? You've done all this upfront work. You make your main campaign. Are there not other stories to tell in that world? Other things to do? Certainly players would like that. Remember the Ballad of Gay Tony, I've forgotten its name, but the Sons of Anarchy expansion for GTA 4. It does make sense to me that more traditional video game expansion packs could actually work and could actually make quite a bit of money for the company. And while I've not actually properly looked into what Borderlands does in that regard, I'm fairly sure that Borderlands does churn out a decent amount of chunky DLC. Though I've not actually, it's not really my type of game, so if you know more there, do let me know. Anyway, that's just a little thought to cap this one off. Certainly, right? Think about it this way. And this is actually tied into a little sort of side project we were working on. It was a little bit Trek inspired, okay? But if you're thinking about making, let's just say you're making a Star Trek narrative video game, right? And we're not. But imagine if you were doing that, okay? You'd put so much work into making the ship and the bridge look really good. Why? Because in every episode, right, you'd be using that asset. So you can see how that asset reuse actually can be smart, can actually make sense. And you could maybe see how Take-Two would be looking at all of the money they put in to making the core of GTA, the core of Red Dead, and just thinking, could we not actually do more with that? So I think that could be their line of thinking. Anyway, let me know, what would you like to see? Would you be okay with actually having traditional expansion set style DLC for games like that, do let me know. Thank you very much for watching this video, and with that, I will see you next time.